That Kia that you just saw that looked very photorealistic, that was made from 2 jelly bean images.
Somebody who's been in automotive for like 15 years now, there's no chance you could use this. If I submitted this to compliance, it would get declined. Dealers would get strikes. They wouldn't get their co-op reimbursement.
Accessories. It's a $40 billion industry, and dealerships only capture 5% of it.
Hey everyone, welcome to Car Dealer AI Show. This is where we speak with dealers and vendors to tell you what's working when it comes to AI and automotive, and also what you should keep an eye on, get some people's ideas on the future and even current state of AI and how that's influencing car dealerships, but then just also the automotive industry in general. Thank you, Greg. Greg is here with Eccentric Engine. He is the head of all North American operations. And I checked them out a little bit and chatted with Greg just before this, and they're doing some incredible stuff. I'm excited to learn more myself and help educate everybody, but also just talk about everything AI. So actually starting off, I saw that you guys develop a lot of visual assets and videos. I just want to talk about a hot topic right now of OpenAI closing down Sora AI. And to me, I feel like they were one of the leaders in the video space, but they've actually bowed out and said, no, we're not the leader. I don't even know all the details. I assume because of OpenAI not being super profitable, they're probably just trimming the fat, but you're probably closer to this than I am. What are your thoughts, Greg?
Yeah. Oh, that's super relevant. And thanks, John, for having me. This is an exciting broadcast for us. We announced we had a big announcement today around video, and so you referenced the Sora announcement that literally broke 2 days ago. 6 months into that merger, and $1 billion later, that whole thing blew up. And we'll never probably know all the reasons why that happened, but and we're going to get into this later because it does relate back to automotive and specifically dealers. What frontier models like Sora and OpenAI do is they generally can produce a lot of different outputs, and that includes visualizations. I think Disney was very excited about this opportunity. But when they discovered what happens in these frontier models is that you've got so much going on in the public domain that you can't really isolate the theme or the product specific to your narrative. And so in the automotive world, what happens is, and you've probably seen this, anybody can create a car in ChatGPT or Grok Imagine or Midjourney. But what they can't do is level set and calibrate those distortions. So the emblem might be upside down. The background may change because it's not archived. And so if you really peel back this Sora and OpenAI story, is Disney quickly realized that what looked good on the surface in creating content actually diluted the value of Disney. And that's the authenticity of that brand. Mm-hmm. And so, thanks for bringing that up. It's still unraveling. We're keeping an eye on it because obviously with the clients that we have, we're constantly having these conversations with up against Google Nano Banana, Adobe Firefly, Meta's got their version. All these frontier models are trying to enter our space, and from an OEM perspective and even a dealer perspective, having your product, your vehicle merchandised in the right way and compliant to the OEM is legally, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I have another channel, JBAI. It's JAYBEEAI. If anyone wants to check it out, where I just talk more like broad AI topics that aren't necessarily specific to automotive. But I actually just released my most recent video was still in automotive, and I chose to post it there because it's kind of like how to use the tools. And I think if somebody new was coming into automotive and they wanted to create they had a marketing agency, they landed their first car dealership client, they wanted to create video content, they would probably jump into Gemini and have Nano Banana create some start and end scenes, and then have VO go ahead and create that into a video. Yeah. And when I did that, I was doing a comparison of OpenAI, which I guess is Sora, and VO. And both of them were, well, actually, really, OpenAI was terrible, and then, or ChatGPT was terrible at it, and then VO was pretty good at it, and it was incredible video. But as somebody who's been in automotive for like 15 years now, I'm like, there's no chance you could use this. If I submitted this to compliance, it would get declined.
Yeah.
Dealers would get strikes. They wouldn't get their co-op reimbursement. Like,
Yeah.
not everybody understands all that. So thinking about like the level of complexity that it takes to actually have AI generate OEM compliant video is wild. So is that what Eccentric does in some ways? Is
Yeah.
takes more specific?
We learned 12 years ago when we started the company is, what we're traditionally known for is 3D. And what that means is interactivity, immersiveness, the same type of engines that you experience on video gaming also apply on tier one sites. So, for example, in Asia Pacific, 8 out of every 10 vehicles that are sold go through one of our configurators. So these are very heavy, big tier one build and price, all the options configurators, all the accessories flying in, horns beeping, doors opening. And
like Grand Theft Auto, right?
Yeah, same deal. Yeah, exactly. Boy, you're bringing me back. Those were fun days. So we really learned how critical what you just referenced is making sure that vehicle is product accurate. If you look at the build and price on tier one sites, that is the source of truth. Those when a model year changes over, when a new vehicle launches, that if you walk into an OEM, all hands on deck, that tier one build and price better reflect that exact vehicle. And so this is where we kind of cut our teeth. And then when we started training our model over a year and a half ago on the Gen AI side, those same types of inputs come into the model, meaning nothing enters our system unless it's an OEM asset. That could be a CAD file, which is basically build factory engineering spec data. It could even be as simple as a couple of Jelly Bean images from the OEM asset library. And then you can layer in other things like, JD Power has Chrome data. You have, you have JADO. You have a lot of different layers of data that can be input. What's super important as you're putting that input in, and I'll get to your question because you asked me what Eccentric does, but as you get into that layer of now generating these outputs, it's very important to keep that contained within an OEM compliant system. And we talked about Soro and Nano Banana. What our system does, and when you're looking at these models, is to make sure it doesn't go out to the public domain. Certainly, the OEM will have a big problem with that. It has to stay encrypted so that the input all the way to the output is all OEM related, and all those data layers are from the OEM. Otherwise, to your point, you submit for co-op, you submit for compliance, they'll strike you. So Eccentric built this model over a year and a half ago. We actually launched our first OTT videos for a dealer group today, or actually last week. We announced it today. We did 5 stores, and I can give you a little glimpse if I can share my screen. If you don't mind.
I love that. So so it sounds like it's not Grand Theft Auto; it's more like Gran Turismo. That's a little bit more realistic, and I love this. I would love to see one and see what you did for the dealer group if we can see that. And can dealers work with you directly, or is it just you're partnered with the manufacturers providing these quality images without big production budgets?
Yeah, all the above. Whether it's a single point dealer, a dealer group, agency that represents a dealer. John, I know you've got an agency background. That's where we originally met. So you think about those big agencies that have these big production teams. What takes 100 people now can take 5, and at a fraction of the cost. And even the OEMs are extraordinarily interested in this product. We actually showed probably one of the top 5 OEMs, our B-roll video produced out of this, and it was better than the B-roll video that they sent a whole production team out to.
Wow! Oh, that's
we did it in 3 hours. So
and all at perfect spec, like perfectly
perfect spec. I mean, it was eye opening for them. Even
wow, that's crazy. I'm excited to see this.
Yeah, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'll just share this. This is Kia Dolan.
So all of that was just AI. There was no actual Kia on that street.
That took 2 jelly bean images, and it took about maybe an hour at most to
Wow.
produce.
Explain what a jelly bean image is.
Yeah, no, good question. So when you go into the OEM asset libraries, when the dealers kind of go out to find different creative that they can leverage for different campaigns, the base image is kind of that vehicle with a white background. It just looks like literally, it kind of looks almost cartoony, to be honest with you. But it is actually from the generated from the CAD files from the OEM, and so the jelly beans are usually reserved for backfill. If you don't have a photo of the vehicle, you'll see them sometimes on the inventory pages of a dealer site. They're that kind of cheap and dirty way of representing a vehicle, but they are generated from an OEM asset. So that's the important piece. So that Kia that you just saw that looked very photorealistic, that was made from 2 jelly bean images.
Yeah, so it's that stock photo that shows up on inventory when the dealers forget to take their photos.
Yeah.
And so you took two of those images at just 2 angles. That's it. And then you also had the CAD file, or just those flat images?
In this case, we just took the 2 jellies and then put the background up there, and then it.
How did it fill in the rest of the blanks? Like, how does it know?
Prompts, yeah, and workflows that we built.
So it didn't have to assume any angle. Like, you were able to, in 2 angles, you were able to capture everything. Or why wouldn't you use 10 angles?
You could. In the OEM example that I referenced earlier, we did use, I think, 5 different jelly beans to get those multiple angles. In this example, though, you can kind of see, there's really, well,
let's play it again. Now that we know, like, kind of a little bit more of how it was created. Okay, so I guess I can kind of see the two angles. That one really reached kind of far out, though. It made it feel like, is this another angle? Did it have to fill in the blanks anywhere? But I guess it didn't.
It's somewhat of the background moving too. So we can replicate a lot of what production teams can do as far as camera movement, where you can have literally everything moving. You can have people in the background. You can have a festive theme with snow falling. And all this thing, everything in that video shot could be completely animated if you chose. So yeah.
And are these all like consumers? We're all familiar with the Nano Bananas and Vios and Soras of the world, and Midjourneys and all these like design asset AI models. Are you guys known to have created your own, or are you still leveraging some of these mainstream models?
We created our own. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And then nobody has access to it. It's just something that you guys utilize. Like, nobody has this as like a SaaS tool or something.
Not yet. We are going to that. We're talking to some very large agencies that want this as a self-service platform, so that their teams can actually do the production themselves. You can imagine, where you used to work and where I've been, again, you're paying
huge,
a tremendous, huge amount of labor cost. And just not only that, the inefficiencies that just kind of come with it. And all this can be done in a matter of minutes, hours. Like, I could show you some assets too here in a minute that, where you're just creating, this was a 15-second clip OTT spec. So it took about an hour. But some of these things, you got a dealer in Utah that wants, mountains in the background in every vehicle image, right? And then they want their dynamic dealer name in the background on their store. Those can be, down to the VIN level, can be spit out in batch in less than 5-10 minutes.
So I love the locality topic here, and let's kind of go into that. So we've had a lot of clients at our marketing agency over the years, and they all want to figure out like what to do next. And the funny problem that successful dealerships have is they have too much money. And because they get $500 per new car sold. So you take that and you say, okay, well, if you're selling 100, 200 vehicles, like you have potentially $100,000 a month that you can spend before even coming into your own pocket, before even diving into your own profits. And we had this one dealership that was a GMC dealership. They were spending about $80,000 a month with us. And they said, what else can we add? What else can we add? And I was like, TV. You have to go on to OTT and really blast it here. But we need like really good creative. And I don't want to just run some OEM footage. And they're like, well, we don't want to spend 10 grand for, because 10 grand to them is how many paid search clicks, like how many more paid search clicks could I get? And how many car sales is that going to be? So 10 grand is actually losing them money in their eyes. And so many dealers think this way, like production is just too expensive. Most dealers don't do it anymore. I would love to know like what this level of AI production is going to do for the traditional media industry, and how many more dollars are going to be put on OTT and actual television because of the fact that now we have creative, like whatever that is. And then you can produce all the other spots, but this is a spot that nobody's solved for yet. And I didn't even know that you guys existed to have solved it. I assumed it was out there somewhere. I see this one ad from some agency that produces automotive videos. I don't know how they don't get shut down because they're terrible. They show them on Facebook advertising, and they put like an F-150 in their hand, or they're like standing on the top of a Land Rover Defender as it's going through the Sahara. And I'm like, these are eye catching, but is that compliant? Because that does not look like the actual vehicle at all.
Yeah, it's and that's what you got to be careful of, because especially on the use side, which we don't dabble in, you're bordering into truth of advertising law, and you got to be very careful in representing the vehicle. And that's why, whenever we talk to OEMs, they love that our tool starts with that OEM asset and then never leaves that box. And then the output is based on that input. As soon as you start putting it out into the frontier models, you start getting those questions about, well, hey, where did my vehicle data go? And then the lawyers get involved, and it's just, you go sideways real quick. We're very proud of what we built. It continues to get better and better. And to your point about backgrounds, my God, this is a long-awaited conversation that we can finally have with dealers to say, if you're near the ocean, we'll put an ocean background. And if you're in the mountains, an OEM like Jeep does not want the Wrangler ever represented on pavement. It always wants it on trails, right? And so we can spit out images where the Jeep is always OEM compliant and OEM enforced to have the Jeep being presented on trails.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to mention about the dealership. I totally forgot to hit the locality piece of it, but we've had so many dealerships where we produce assets, and we have to use the OEM quality stuff that doesn't have layers. It's just that there in the scene, and they're not filming in Arkansas and Alabama, and they're filming in New York and Colorado and California, and that's probably about it. Like in these mountainous city or coastal areas. And many times it's just for, whatever that brand is. And that brand, if it's a pickup truck, it's going to be in front of a mountain. It's not going to be in a city. But obviously the dealers don't want to be representing their product as if it doesn't belong in its own city. So now you can put it in its own city.
You can. Yeah. Yeah. And it could dynamically serve up. So if you got a large auto group like Lithia who wants multiple backgrounds, they can choose by region or by state or by zip, what type of backgrounds to get it hyperlocal, even down to the SERP and the VDP pages, where you're presenting those vehicles on the lot or in transit, where they want to show that either that custom background with their dealership name or a mountain in the background, or maybe they have a model showroom page that they want to expose their locality on. So, and again, I can't stress enough how fast these things are, man. We're talking minutes, not weeks, or, incentives come out tomorrow. We can have these things flipped on very quickly.
I mean, the fact that you said it was an hour, and it's probably not even an hour of somebody's time, I would imagine. It's just like processing. And they could start on one video, maybe move to the next.
Yeah.
Are you able to share any sort of like roundabout pricing on something like this, when they're used to spending 10 to 20 grand. I mean, OEMs are spending way more than that for manufacturer level quality stuff. But
Yeah.
if Lithia comes to you, what does that look like? Or if an agency comes to you and says, hey, I want to resell these, what does that relationship look like?
Yeah, yeah, it's a fraction of the cost. I'll just put it that way. It's very
Okay.
inexpensive, to the point where even on some of the build and price projects we're working on, it's 70% less of the current vendors that are out there. To give you some perspective,
Yeah, that's
even
good.
at that level, right? So
That's huge.
you boil this down to a dealer level, it's at a price point where the dealers, they're asking how quick can we get it. That's how cheap it is.
Yeah, it's not like price is a barrier of entry.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah,
Another
especially if you can create like good evergreen content that lasts all year. And then
Yeah.
if, even other production, like a creative agency like ourselves could go in there and just put the layers on. Hey, this is the spring event. This is the summer event. This is, the Ford truck event, whatever that is,
Yeah.
or Ford truck month.
And
That's
we can
incredible.
even do that. We can even put the overlays on.
Yeah. What I'm saying, like, at least I'm just trying to figure out how to cut corners a little bit. Not that you couldn't do it, but I know that an agency would appreciate, from being on that side, they would appreciate, like, okay, here's a bunch of content that is in my area. Now I can put the lease specials on because those are going to change every single month. Whatever the, I know Chrysler's really big on having their event badges on everything, and those change every single year. I don't want to give Greg a call every single time, but maybe that's the place you play. But just having the foundational stuff is huge. I'd be really excited to see the day where this does become a SaaS thing that is OEM approved, that anybody can kind of manage, just knowing that there's OEM compliant, images in their hands.
Right.
I would imagine that would be co-opable too. So it'd just be free to dealers potentially.
Yeah. It's an interesting perspective that you just took that not many people think about. Because I think about it all the time. When I'm talking to OEMs, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about all the POs that are flying out to these production agencies and all these different creative agencies that they're using. In some cases, when you go into the asset library, you can see them all. There's 100 of them. And in reality, these are the amount of cost involved in that and just inefficiencies in that. Remember when you were at Force and I was at, my agencies, the dealers would be like, where do I get the creative? And you go, oh, I don't know, call Shift Digital or call, I don't know. And then they would go to like the asset library and find like a little jelly bean in Publicis's little, asset category. And it's like, that's so inefficient. To your point earlier, it doesn't have localized or even dealer oriented creative. You're just slapping lipstick on the peg. All that creative assets that exist in these libraries can literally be done in a tool like this. And again, that's a little bit of a humble brag, but that is reality. That's where we're at now. It's you don't need, an OEM asset library that costs hundreds of potentially millions of dollars that they're spending with these folks. You can do it very cost efficiently.
Yeah, it's funny. You say it takes an hour to create that video.
Yeah.
For anybody who's ever been in one of these OEM asset galleries, it takes an hour to navigate it. Like you have to find your login, then you have to go to the OEM site and figure out where they hid the link. For some reason, they're always hiding the links. Like they have a navigation here and a navigation here, and then sub navigations. And then you go in, and then there's a bunch of folders that only make sense to the Shift Digitals of the world who probably put it there.
Right.
And it's so difficult to find. And then they're like, okay, well, now we have these transparent images, but that's called this. And then we have the spring event images, and that's over here somewhere, but you have to click into this folder and then click into that folder. And super complicated. So being able to just produce exactly what you want on the spot is huge.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, where you used to play, and you were a legend in the industry. You don't even know you were, but when I met you, you were the tier 2 guy at Force, and nobody had played in that space. And even today they don't. And you think about the amount of money and the creative that's involved at tier 2, that layer, right? You were the guy.
There's a hidden budget there that nobody knows about.
But if you remember, and it still holds today, it's all a lot about creative elements. It's about, it's about market share opportunities, conquesting. It's It's these big video banners and stadiums and arenas that say, buy Ford now, or, Chicago area Honda deal. You know them all because you used to you used to sell them.
Yeah, and we used to do a lot of we would call them bias comparisons. And so we
Yeah,
would have the comparison. I would literally just type in like Ford F-150 versus, and then hit
right.
enter, and then see what all vehicles like pop up first, and then know that that's the search demand. Then go to Edmunds and look at all the stats and only pull the good stats. Then create tables that are just showing the stats that vehicle won in. And
Yeah,
yeah, it was a fun game. Now it would be exciting to be like, okay, how can you turn that into a OEM level video ad and maybe
yep,
show two sports cars racing each other and see. I don't know. I think you can get crazy creative. I mean, what you
yeah,
did was really cool, but like putting it in the hands of thousands of other people, if not tens of thousands of other people, it's like the amount of creative would be so I would nerd out with it.
yeah. You
Curious. This is like super off topic, but since you're in the video world, you mentioned Disney. I think it's funny when AI is created, and you may debunk my myth here. But when AI videos are popping out, everybody's like, no, AI's garbage, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, how do you think the Lion King was like created? And they're like, no, that's CGI. What does CGI mean? CGI is computer generated, which is
yeah.
probably like very heavy AI. Not that there's not a creative human component that's saying do this, this, but like, do you have any insight on how that level of creative is actually built? And is there AI components, or what does
Oh,
that look like?
1,000%. In fact, one of my team members, she came from the motion picture industry out in LA, and so I wish she was here because she could go into detail. What I will tell you about CGI, though, and you just referenced it, there is a human element. So there are companies out there, especially around the vehicle image companies, that use CGI. They stitch together vehicles, and the issue with that is human interpretation, especially because a lot of that CGI work is outsourced overseas. And so when they're looking at angles of vehicles or shadowing or sheet metal and how it wraps, when they start stitching that together, you'll see this in some of the VLPs and VDP images. You'll see some of those distortions, and so you have to be a little bit careful there. I know that doesn't answer your question because you're asking about Disney, but you referenced CGI.
Mhm.
But yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why
The
it's better on cartoons. It's funny because we create, so I own a company called cardealer.ai. We
Yep,
develop voice AI agents for car dealerships,
yep,
and we try to make them fun and visual. So we actually use avatars
yep,
and to like actually have the two-sided conversations with the actual customer and the dealer on the other side, or the AI agent on the other side. And we wanted to make it really photorealistic, but the truth is it's really difficult to have AI create photorealistic stuff and actually look realistic with the lips moving and everything. And I mean, not that it doesn't exist. Hey Jen does a decent job at that, and then you could do some post edits to make it even better. But cartoons are easier. Like you can jump into platforms. I think we were using Hedra to do the lip sync. So we use like 5 different platforms to create one small like clip.
yeah,
But Hedra was one of them that like syncs whatever audio file to the animated person. And so then you think about like the Disney and Pixar's of the world, which I guess is still Disney nowadays, but um, it's like cartoons really, they can be imperfect, and that's okay. And that's where CGI works. But photorealism is really difficult. I to kind of, I want to like try to explain a piece of technology to the viewers, because I think I'm visualizing this while you're talking, but I don't know how many other people understand it, or if I'm even accurate in assuming what I'm about to say for your engine. Is I follow AI news really, really closely. And if shout out to Matt Wolf on YouTube, I watch every single one of his videos and watch how he demos things. But that gives me like, not only do I know like things like the Nano Banana or that Sora just closed and all that stuff, it's like the intricacies of like, okay, 15.1, now 15.2, what just changed? 15.3, what just changed? And when Nano Banana really came out, they spoke about this layered model that hadn't existed in AI imagery before then, which, when I think of layers, it's like, okay, you have my picture and I have the background, I have a mic, and I have all these other things. Now AI was actually detecting all the different layers, separating those out so ones don't become affected by the edit. So if I say change my background, imagery before would have just said, okay, now I have to recreate this whole thing from scratch. And then you're going to end up altering some facial features. But instead, now you say change my background, and it cuts me out really quick in its own little back-end system, says don't touch his face yet, like let's just change the background. So I imagine that's probably similar to how Eccentric is working, is like, no, we can do anything to the background, we cannot mess up the car. Is that a simplified version of what you guys are doing?
Yes and no. Yes,
Okay.
the vehicle stays accurate, and yes, the background stays accurate because we archive all the edits. And so if you say, so you brought up a great point. Thank you for bringing this up. Every time I go in Nano Banana and try to visualize a vehicle and then go back and edit the back, something changes, the background changes, and in essence, the vehicle too, in many cases. But that's the
Yeah.
difference between an automotive centric AI engine like ours, where we've archived all the previous versions so that that background would never change. And that vehicle will always stay accurate. That's a non-negotiable. But the fact that we've archived the past revisions, we can bring that background back in exactly like we had it for the first time. So what you described is super important because that happens all the time in the frontier models. You go back and you do an edit and you're like, oh crap, that cloud moved, or why is the sun not shining, or there's a weird reflection on the car now, and it's like, no, I didn't want that, and
Or it's
they
considering past prompts all the time, and then it's like, yeah, editing stuff in the original image is like what you're going to have to deal with most of the time. And then
yeah
once you start editing in these things, I do think that layering is going to be human controlled layering. Probably already exists. I'm sure it already exists inside of advanced editors or enterprise level editors. I know our design team uses that kind of stuff, and they're creating their own layers and using Photoshop's AI functions. I'm excited for it to come to the LLM chat platforms, though, especially now that OpenAI is partnered with Adobe. I felt like they were going to go to layers quicker, and they still haven't done anything like that. Even Nano Banana, like, let me click on the layer. You identify the layers for me. Let me click on one or a grouping of them and say, only make edits to this.
yeah
And I think that would push them light years ahead of where they are right now.
yeah you bring up chat. We're going to start testing with a website provider here in the next probably 3 or 4 months because we do 3D really well, and because it's now at a cost point that a dealer can afford. And you and I both know the websites suck. They've sucked for 15 years. Sorry, just the UX of them. Sorry, I shouldn't say all websites, just the
Yeah.
UX side of it.
All the ones that people know that are household names are pretty bad. And then there's the startups that don't know how to sell themselves and get into the politics of OEM approvals. And like automotive vendor industry is a politics game. And that's why I decided to get out of it in some ways, because I was an automotive website vendor for a while. It was called OptiAuto. Every dealer we would speak to was like, this is the best thing that we've seen. But like the OEMs don't want to approve another vendor. And they're like, no, you have to have the dealer.coms and the dealer-ons and CDKs of the world. And they were all really great back once upon a time, but now they're too big to care to continue to innovate and be great.
Yeah, and some of it's not their fault, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying what I just said. But some of it's not your fault. It's some of it's just the nature of the industry and the programs that have stifled innovation. And so you brought up chat, and I think that's a super big opportunity here. So think of a 3D Ford Bronco on a dealer website where somebody can go into a AI chat conversation and start building that vehicle. Accessories flying in as you're flying in. It's almost a virtual digital retail where it's pricing out the vehicle as you're adding the options and adding the different elements of the vehicle, changing colors on the fly. And that's another point we didn't even talk about. If somebody says, Greg, I want a black Ram 1500, and then tomorrow they want it white, that can be done in a minute, right? These are the types of things that can exist on a dealer website now, where all this interactivity, all this immersive nature, all this conversational AI can start actually steering the customer into a visualization of the vehicle that they're going to purchase. And that's where we're going to test this. It's unproven, but we got the 3D piece down to a price point. Literally, and you asked about price. I'll just give you a price. I mean, let's just call it $500 to have a full blown 3D interactivity model on a dealer website. That's unheard of.
Okay.
These are normally millions of dollars on tier one sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can put these on dealer sites now, and with conversational AI, you can actually now integrate that into visualizing the vehicle you're ready to purchase without actually having to go visit.
Yeah, I love like the prompt-based conversational editing, because I think about, I'm always shopping for cars. I buy like a car once a year, and I'm just addicted to trading in my vehicle and buying another one. So when I am using custom features, it's like I click this and then this thing toggles off and then this toggles off, because you have to like adhere to the packages. But I bet you I could turn what I'm looking for into a prompt. Like, I don't want the base model. I don't want the luxury model. I just want this type of thing. Suggest something for me. And then I picture, like, now thinking about how fun this could end up being is like, right now it does a good job 3D turning and doing all that and diving into things. But your name is Eccentric Engine. Before this podcast started, you brought up Unreal Engine, which, for those who don't know, is probably the leading video game, creation tool. I don't know the piece that they play. You would know that a little bit better, but so thinking about, you kind of are in the video game space in some ways, and just utilizing it towards automotive, and like, how much more fun can this be?
It could be Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Or like, I actually remember Gran Turismo. I was a big Gran Turismo fan when I was a kid, and it was like, that was realistic. Like, that was like, I bet you they were doing similar things to what you're doing, of like actually taking real specs, the real vehicles, and knowing the physics behind them, and creating stuff that is, it was real. Way back then, it was real. It felt real. I bet you it looks terrible if I type in like 1995 Gran Turismo or whatever year it was. But
yeah. You'll appreciate this, though. That technology now exists at a price point that the dealer can afford. So the two big engines out there that you referenced, Unity and Unreal, that power the video game industry, they rely on streaming cost. So every time a user session happens, they get charged by Amazon Cloud or Google Cloud. And because the two founders of Eccentric created their own engine, and packetize the data and compress the data so much, they can render 3D on a device level GPU. So to give you an example, 13 years ago, they walked into Toyota, and Toyota basically said, we're not interested. There's no way you can render 3D on a cell phone. There's just no way. We've never seen it. So we're going to continue using the existing engines. They came back 6 months to a year later. They took the crappiest cell phone they could find in Mumbai, India, brought it back to Toyota Suzuki, and said, look, we've rendered 3D on a device level GPU. And they made a bet that the GPUs would continue to get better. And they were right. And so here we are today talking about actually having 3D on a dealer website.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I could just picture my computer starts ramping up if I open up Photoshop, or like your Xbox is probably like burning up, and the fans going boom. And like, but imagine like the type of speed that people expect out of a website. You can't take that long to load, and you can't have people's computers shutting down because they have a $500 Windows, laptop.
Well, think about this. I mean, we had OEMs that we talked to that were using those engines. Marketing did their job. They got millions of people to the site, and they had to take the site down because it got too costly because of the streaming cost.
Wow.
And so that's a horrible experience. Like, you just launched this beautiful new model, and now you got to shut the site down because it costs too much.
Yeah.
What
do you think is let's put our kind of like our visionary hats on for a second. So current state is already a wow factor. Everything you're doing, I'm super impressed by. I'm excited to see more and see more dealers utilizing what you guys are doing. But what is the future? What are you guys talking about? Maybe it's not even what you guys are talking about, but just like, Greg, you think this could be the possibility?
Yeah, I like what you referenced earlier, and the vision of, again, I know we've talked about this. It's almost cliche now, like a virtual showroom, right? But
Mm,
the reality is now you have the ability, if you think about consumers, there's two motivations why they go to the dealer website. Is the car I want available, and is it for the price I can afford? Well, the first part of that equation is right now it's very difficult for a consumer, even on the VLP and the VDP pages, to accurately see the vehicle that they think they want to buy. The color's wrong. The options aren't available. My wife will not buy a white car. So when we go onto dealer websites, it may show a white car, but then you look in the seller's notes, it says it's actually a gray car, and she likes gray. But the vehicle doesn't represent does even what the consumer naturally would buy. That's one short-term immediate need that we're trying to address on dealer websites. The inventory pages, listen, they claim to be OEM compliant, but they look like cartoons. The vehicles,
mm,
like I'm talking about, like the non-photographed ones, the in transit, the build to order, they're awful. They're just awful because that industry has not been disrupted in over 15 years. And so we're trying to change that piece where when you look at a vehicle on the CERT pages or the vehicle detail pages, it's actually the product that you're going to get. Color, options, down to the VIN level. So we're going to launch two dealerships in LA, hopefully in the next week, that are going to show those very product accurate vehicles. And I'll send that to you, John, when we launch that. Midterm, short and midterm, because we launched the OTT video. This is where we started talking. These videos, think about Conquest in your old tier 2 world, using that video at a cost efficient price point, right? Those CPMs aren't that expensive in reality compared to trying to do that in search or some other digital tactic, right? When we used to do it in search, try to go for tier 2, the CPCs were enormous. But if we can layer on Conquest rebate offers or loyalty incentive offers on top of OTT videos, that's a great play for tier 2 and even brands that don't have a tier 2 layer, right? Those are different mechanisms in the digital world that we can now produce at a very cost efficient price point, and more importantly, turn over very quickly. Long term, John, that's really your world, man. You live this. I'm just along for the ride. I would love to spit. I would love to talk to you guys more, just even offline, man, because you guys, I'm sure you guys have some brilliant ideas about where we could go next. Visualizations.
Yeah, I think I'm like it's so crazy because I work with dealerships and dealerships hate to hear me talk about this, but like my thought is that you don't need dealerships really. Like you do need dealerships for like used vehicles, you need dealerships for their service lane, but I'm just waiting for the day that OEMs start going direct. We actually just had a show about Amazon autos and how Amazon's partnering with OEMs and dealer groups to list their inventory. And I'm like, that really is like Amazon is that dealer layer now.
Mhm.
If people are purchasing vehicles on Amazon, then that really has already removed the dealer. But then there's legalities around dealers can't actually be removed. Well, guess what? You just replace them with a website. And how many more times is that going to happen? I think that I also think, especially as somebody who builds AI agents, that as you build more AI agents for every component of the dealership, it's really cool that like you're replacing one little thing and making things more efficient, but eventually they're all going to connect and operate the entire dealership as a whole. One thing I think that kind of brings back to video, which I'd love to actually catch up with this person I'm about to mention. You may or may not know him from those Force days, but it was Nick Sabella was somebody that was in my mind, an innovator. He was really, really good at thinking about the future and being like ultra techie and sometimes more techie than dealers wanted. And he actually launched a company called FlowFound that I think was ahead of its time. So it didn't actually last too long, but
Okay.
that was creating virtual test drives for vehicles. So then they would actually go take the 3D cameras and go into dealerships and say, hey, let me create 3D test drives for your top 10 models. And then somebody can jump in. One of the challenges I think there was not everybody has a virtual reality device to actually see that. I think that could change soon. I don't think people are going to jump into these VR devices much. That really flopped, I think, in Meta's eyes. And but the Ray-Bans and stuff, like imagine if you can get high quality imagery there. I have these glasses that I use all the time, and I use them on the plane mainly. It's called X Real, and so they say that it's like not virtual reality because I'm not completely closed off, but it's just sunglasses, and then it blackens right here, so I can kind of see like 20% of what's in front of me, and then I'm watching IMAX level Netflix,
Yeah.
stuff with my Bose headphones, and I'm like immersed. And it feels like the plane rides are only 30 minutes long because I'm so engaged in that. Now imagine if you could do that with product demonstrations.
Yeah.
I think FlowFound's idea was that they were putting kiosks in people's dealerships so that way they could just do virtual reality test drives. Um, I always think there'll be a need to feel and touch the vehicle sometimes, but like there's a lot of brands where people don't need that. You don't need to feel and touch a Mercedes S Class or or a Sierra or like vehicles that like a Denali brand. I think a lot of like premium vehicles, you don't really need to test drive those. You know that they're going to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
But like when does video turn into what actually is the final influence to them actually purchasing?
Yeah.
I think that's my view on your world of
Yeah.
like
No,
what could be possible.
thank you for that. Gosh, I have a flight next week, and I'm gonna find those glasses, man. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, everybody on the plane asked me about them, and I'm like, they're a savior. Like I bought them because I had a newborn baby that wouldn't sleep in the crib, so I had him on a wedge pillow on my lap, and I was like, I'm bored out of my mind. There has to be some solution out there where I can have like not my iPad glaring on top of him so I can watch stuff. And I found these glasses years ago. Now they're outdated technology. They have new ones, but
Interesting.
yeah, it's wild what
We were even
exists right now.
we even had you'll find this humorous. We were talking to this agency of record for an OEM, and they asked if we could put our 3D visualizations up in Times Square. They're launching a new model this year. And the reality is you can, which I think would be pretty cool to have this thing, kind of pop out as like Godzilla, come out.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds awesome. So we'll see you at New Year's Eve Times Square, right next to the Kia ball. Or I
There's so
joke
many use cases.
the KN ball.
Exactly. Let me do one thing real quick, if you don't
Uh-huh.
mind. I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain of how this happens.
Okay.
We put together a little video for NADA, so it's already produced. So I won't talk while it's flowing, but you'll see a peek behind the curtain. And then,
Okay.
John, I think what's important then in maybe future conversations we have is take a look at some of the current use cases that this is existing for, and then think about what's next. So I would love to,
Okay.
to pick your brain, man.
Yeah. Let's see it.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start with the OEM asset going into the Echo, what we call Echo AI. That's our proprietary Gen AI tool.
Okay.
And then you'll see how the output happens. And then it's going to flow into use case. This is only a minute long, so it's not very long, but you'll see the various use cases. And stop me if there's any point you're like, oh wait, hold on, I want to see what's going on there.
Okay. Cool.
So here we go. OEM certified data going in. Getting the angle right. This is jelly beans now. Remember that. This is just a jelly bean.
Wow. So no complex CAD files here.
No. We could.
I love this. Even just as like the website, even the transitions and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I'm picturing, oh wow, oh that's cool.
Yeah. Imagine that.
I'm picturing Facebook ads. Like imagine that was just a quick 3-second video and a Facebook ad. That really engages somebody. Most of the Facebook ads that we run at T3 Marketing are just these inventory carousels, and they're so boring, but they're the most effective ads that we run. So we just keep on doing them. But imagine if they had these little video clips. Wow. Oh, I love how you're like piecing it all together. The videos with the humans, I think, is a big play because all these dealers that I speak to don't want to be that dealer.
Right.
But that's what works. And, I know I grew up, or not grew up, but when I was in college, I lived in Fort Myers and there was Facilo Kia. And Facilo, for those who know them, he was in Florida and he was in New York. He was the giveaway guy. He would give away a cruise for every new car that you purchased,
Yep.
and he sold 1,000 Kias a month. And he was like just crazy obnoxious, and he would have, everything was huge. We're having huge sales, and like it was incredible. But the amount of energy that it took him, and the fact that he became a celebrity locally, I think probably was okay for him, is not okay for every dealer. And now imagine if you can actually get these AI avatars connected with your OEM compliant, your OEM compliant stuff. And we actually
Yep.
did develop a video for a dealership like that, where we're like, okay, we can't show cars that are AI generated. We can show human walking through the dealership and giving their big spiel.
Yeah.
Then we had to put the OEM content on there. So we couldn't like just the OEM stock videos. And that's great, and it worked. But like I think what you guys have is much better. And I love how you just showed this like web of, yeah.
Well, there's a future use case that you just talked about, and I love that idea. Think about that salesperson, that avatar, walking around the showroom, and then a customer prompting or in the chat conversation saying, "Wait, stop! That's the car. That's what I wanted to see." And then now the
Oh,
agents, right? Like now you're actually like in the dealership with the avatar talking
that's
about that vehicle.
crazy.
Yeah, and a near and dear piece of the industry to my heart is accessories. And
Okay.
imagine, well, and the reason why, John, is you're gonna this is gonna take up an hour. It's a $40 billion industry, and dealerships only capture 5% of it. But the
Oh.
reality is, consumers are buying the accessories somewhere.
Hmm.
So think about that example that we just provided, and that person is saying in the chat, "Show me this with the roof rack. Show me this with the all-weather floor mats. Show this with a cargo liner. Show it with a trailer hitch." Think about that, compiling all that data and all that information about that vehicle, and then producing that deal, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
we're getting a little aspirational, but that's not too far out in the future.
Well, yeah, I like that. I am big on accessories and big on not buying them from the dealership for some reason, because I feel like they're probably overpriced, even though I'm probably spending more. I go to my place, it's called Autoplex. I go there and I get my bed liners, I get my tent, I get, whatever. Yeah, I get my wheels, whatever I'm getting, I get somewhere else,
Yeah.
just because I feel like the dealer's scamming me a little bit. But imagine if you um, put that base model that you're going to purchase, and you're at the table signing, and they're like, actually, really quick, I just want to show you what your vehicle could look like for
Yeah.
only 1,500 more bucks. This is what it could look like. Let's just do that out of pocket so it doesn't raise your payment. And you can sell that if you had that photorealistic image. It's kind of like home improvements. It's like, okay, you could have a bunch of home improvements. It's going to cost $30,000 and you're going to say no. But imagine if you had a rendering and what that rendering looks like. And people have been doing that for a long time already.
Yeah.
But bringing that to dealerships
Well,
is
you said
great.
you buy a vehicle every year. Be honest with me. How many times have you bought a vehicle and the salesperson never brought up accessories?
Um, yeah, I don't know if they've ever. So I had this really weird experience where they were going to, and this is like, I can't believe I this happened to me, because I feel like I hear it as a joke all the time.
Okay.
But to answer your question, nobody's ever tried to upsell accessories to me, except for this last vehicle that I purchased. And they had floor mats in there as an extra line item, and it said all terrain floor mats. So I thought they were selling me like the rubber floor mats. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't really need that right now. It increases my payment by $20 a month, like whatever it was. Just take that off. And so they sold me a vehicle with no floor mats. And I was like, oh, I thought that was the upsell, and that I was just going to get the basic carpet floor mats. And that was okay with me. But, anyways, I got there. And, and you always hear about like the dealers that charge extra for floor mats. And I thought that was like an old school thing. But no, that still happens today.
Yeah, and I think I'm like you. I get anxiety about dealer add-ons and how much they're going to charge. Although Detroit, where I live, is a very lease-heavy market, so adding a roof rack and a trailer hitch, and if they can equate it to less than a few cups of coffee a month, I'm in. I'll jump in. Plus, it's covered under warranty and all this other stuff. So this is not part of the AI conversation, but I wanted to show you one thing, another one of our products that we launched, because it does relate to the CAD files. We use CAD files for this product at the dealer level. And when we talk to dealers about accessories, they always use the phrase selling scared. So you mentioned you've bought probably over 20 cars in your life. Me too. Mm-hmm. I've never had one salesperson offer because they sell scared. They're as scared of bringing it up as we're scared of even buying it from them.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a good point. They don't want to push you away and feel too salesy because accessory is not going to make that much money for them. The vehicle makes the money for them.
Exactly. But they can add $500 to $1,000 of gross on the vehicle by adding accessories. They just, for whatever reason, fear to bring it up. So we launched this a few months back. It's basically called Frequently Bought Together. It's a ripoff of Amazon. Amazon figured this out. They figured out the psychological trick where they said to the product team, if you put ancillary items with the product of interest, like paper towel, you show the bleach, right? And God, my wife is the poster child of buying things and adding into the cart from similar items or frequently bought together, right?
I found out my wife uses Amazon just like social media. She just goes there and scrolls through, and I'm like, whoa, don't do that. That's not cool. She's like, but all the recommendations are so good.
Yeah.
Like,
so hey, if Amazon's figured it out, why not try it on the dealers? And when you look at Amazon's financials, those frequently bought together items account for 30% of their e-commerce revenue. So we took that same thesis and applied it to the dealer VDP and said, for every new vehicle, let's show frequently bought together, right? And then we're going to render and have these accessories fly into the vehicle using the CAD files, right?
That's great.
And so
I love all your little transitions. That's just such a good little touch. The glowing lights and stuff.
Oh yeah. That's we got a very exciting, excitable UX team in our team. But
that's amazing.
But so these are all CAD file data. So it's all fitment proper, vehicle product accurate. More importantly, what happens, and you see these tiles on the right, when the dealer gets this lead, the accessories that the customer selected show up in the lead notes. And now that salesperson is forced to have that conversation with that customer because the customer drove that conversation, right? We're still doing some testing with this, but I thought it was important to show because it's a visualization piece that relies on CAD files and does address an often neglected part of the business.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's incredible. And nowadays, people don't know what's AI and not AI. So you can say this is part of the AI conversation.
Well, it will be. It will. This will be. Yeah. In fact, we'll probably even show more.
Well, that's incredible. Well, we're running short on time, so we're gonna have to close it up. Is there anything, just a last thing that you want to leave the audience with?
Well, no, John. I just want to thank you for your time, and you were very nice about bringing vendors on. I know sometimes you want to avoid the sales pitch, and hopefully I kept this more educational. Would love to revisit this in 6 months, see where we're at. Obviously, love to take you offline and pick your brain a little bit. But enjoyed the show. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then if a dealer, OEM, whoever you would work with, Auto Group wanted to contact you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Greg at eccentricengine.com.
Okay.
Yep. So we can, I can flash that on the screen if you don't mind. I'll do a little shameless plug here.
Yep.
Let's see if I can.
How does that work? How are you about to do that?
I gotta find out.
I don't even know how that works.
I don't either. I gotta find the right deck.
Oh, you're going to share your screen.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to get it to show up on your camera. I was like, wow, I need to learn how to do this because I could do this all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And add little, I've tried to plug in my personal YouTube channel. If I could just float over my face real quick, that would be good.
Yeah, I don't have the deck up in front of me. So, but
Oh, yeah, good. So Greg at eccentricengine.com.
Yep.
That's a nice, easy spelling. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Greg. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. For everybody watching, we started a Facebook group called AI in Automotive, where we have incredible conversations. This is how we're connecting to a lot of dealers and vendors. The conversations are ramping up every single day. I think now we're at 1.3 thousand members, and I hope that we get to 10,000 soon. But there's a lot of incredible conversations every single day, and we get to experience like what new technologies are coming out, which is really cool, and see exactly what dealers think about it. A lot of times dealers hate it or really love it. I've noticed in AI it's like polar opposites. People are all in AI is going to take over, or FAI. And I love those conversations because those are really just great debates.
Yeah.
And then if you like content like this, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to turn on notifications for when we release more shows. And we hope to see you at the next show.